Good morning and welcome to Thursday. It is June 4th. This is Algebra 1. Today we're doing the first day of the last new unit of the year. I'm sure you're very happy about that. And as you can tell from the board behind me, the topic is called factoring. So, what is factoring? We talked originally about the three forms of a quadratic equation. There was vertex form, there was standard form, then there was what we call factored or intercept form. So if you remember what that looked like, there were two sets of parentheses, so y equals parentheses, x plus 1, close parenthesis, open parenthesis, x minus 6, or something like that. It showed you the x-intercepts, which we also said were the solutions to the quadratic equation. Well, factored form is what you get when you factor a standard form quadratic equation. And there's a reason to do it. It's a lot easier to solve. So let's take an example, okay? Let's say I gave you factored form in the first place. Y equals x plus 1 parentheses, x minus 5. From the original lesson and what I just said, we can tell what the answers will be. We said the p and the q, the x-intercepts, the solutions would be -1 and also +5. Because those are the two locations on the x-axis where the parabola would cross through. And that's correct. But what if we don't have factored form? What if we don't have intercept form? Let's say we have, I don't know, the standard form if you were to FOIL this out. So let's just presume for a minute. We know the answer should be -1 and 5. It's fine. Let's say we didn't get this. We got the standard form, which is what you get when you distribute. So that will be x times x, which is x squared. That's x times -5, which is -5x. This is +1 times x, which is +1x. And +1 times -5, which is -5. And then you would combine the two middle terms because they are like terms. And we get y equals x squared. -5 plus 1 is -4x minus 5. So in standard form, that's what it would look like. Now, I'm not saying you have to put intercept form into standard form. We're not going to be doing that, but I'm showing you what the equation would look like in standard. So these are the same equation, just one is in intercept or factored form, the other is in standard form. Now let's presume that that's what we had to work with, and that was the question you were given, and you were told to solve for x, or figure out where the parabola would cross through the x-intercepts. I'm just going to write it again over here to give me room to work. Okay, so what would you do in this instance? Well, we just came off the part of our unit where we worked with the quadratic formula to solve for problems just like this. So let's just do a quick example of what that would look like. You'd identify your a, b, and c. A is 1, b is -4, c is -5. And then we use the quadratic formula, x equals -b, so -4, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so -4 squared, minus 4 times 1 times -5, all over 2 times 1. And we keep solving it. -4 is 4, plus or minus, -4 squared is 16. -4 times 1 is -4 times -5 is +20, so it's +20, over 2, and then we have 4 plus or minus the square root of 36 over 2. Well, that is x equals 4 plus or minus 6 over 2. Then we break it up into two solutions, so 4 plus 6 over 2, that's 10 over 2, which is 5. Or we'd say 4 minus 6 over 2, that's -2 over 2, which is -1. We get the same answer we found in the first place when I gave you the intercept form of the equation. The answers are still 5 and -1. Of course they are. It's the same equation, but this was another way to solve the problem. It's a lot of work. And judging on your quizzes and some of the homework I had received, work with negatives might cause you some trouble as well. So if there's a faster, simpler way to solve a quadratic equation that's in standard form, we should probably try to use it. And fortunately, there is. So I'm going to just backtrack and I'm going to erase the work I had put up there for the quadratic formula. I'm going to leave up the ABC part of it because I still need to know that info. And we are going to try to solve this problem using the concept known as factoring. Factoring is just taking that standard form equation and breaking it back into the two factors, the two sets of parentheses. There are multiple ways to do this. There are multiple complications. We're going to stick with the simpler form right now. You'll get more into that in Algebra 2. But here's what I want to do. And this works when the a value is 1, which obviously for this problem it is. I call this the box method. Okay? We're going to call this the box method because it uses two boxes. And there's a pretty simple strategy to it. Okay? Draw two boxes big enough for you to write in and far enough apart from each other to write in between them. So far, so good. Now, here's the box method. I'm looking for two numbers, one that goes in this box and one that goes in that box. Those two numbers have to multiply to equal whatever the C term is. And those same two numbers, whatever numbers we're coming up with, have to also add to equal the B term. It's very important. It's the same two numbers. If they multiply to the C term, they also have to add to the B term or they're the wrong numbers. Make sense? Now, in our example, the C term is -5. And our B term is -4. So here's the first thing I want you to ask yourself. What type of numbers will multiply to be negative? One positive and one negative. To multiply and be negative, one of the numbers has to be negative. So I'm going to write plus here and minus there because the sign does matter. Matters a lot. All right, so the first thing I've taken care of is one number is going to be positive and one number is going to be negative to factor this appropriately. Now, -5, it's pretty easy to break 5 down. There's not much that multiplies together to be 5. We're looking for whole numbers that multiply together to equal that number, but also add together to be the B term. So what multiplies together to be -5? Well, 1 and -5, or -1 and +5. There's nothing else. So it's got to be a combination of those two. The right combination is the one that also adds to be -4. So, which is it? Is it -5 and +1 or +5 and -1? Add them together and see. +5 and -1 add together to be +4. But that's the wrong sign. Okay, -5 and +1 add together to be -4, which is the correct sign. So I decided that it was going to be a -5 and a +1. Now we can always double check while we're here. What is +1 times -5? It is -5. What is +1 plus -5? It is -4. We got it. Now here's how we assemble this. We know that when we have factored form or intercept form, what we get are two sets of parentheses. So I'll say y equals, because it starts that way, one set of parentheses and then the next set of parentheses, because that's what intercept form or factored form looks like. I also know, and this is again specific to when you've got an a value of 1, which is all we're going to do this year, but it's going to get more complicated next year with Algebra 2. We know that both of those parenthesis sets start off with the letter x. How do we know that? Well, of course, every example we've looked at has used them, but also when you would distribute them back through, x times x is x squared, which gave us our first term. So far, so good. This says +1. So I'm going to write +1 over here. This says -5. So I'm going to write -5 over here. We have now factored our equation. It's finished. If I want to know what the x-intercepts are, I'm going to use the same strategy I used when I was working with intercept form about 2 weeks ago. What makes this a 0? Well, it's the opposite of what you see. So -1 is one of the intercepts, the p and the q. Those are the solutions. If you want to still use p and q, feel free. -1 here and +5 there. And as you'll recall from what we did at the beginning of this lesson, those are the answers. We got them right. Factoring is not too difficult, but not everything factors. So that's another caution. It doesn't always factor. If I had two things that multiply together to be 4, but add together to be 37, I'm at a loss, because no factors of 4 will add together to be 37 no matter what I do. 4 and 1, 2 and 2, negatives, positives, does not matter. I'm not getting a 37 out of that. There's a reason. It doesn't factor. That's okay. This will work when the equation is factorable. Okay? If it's not, use the quadratic formula. That's all. Okay, we'll do one more example of how factoring can work for you. Okay? And again, remember, factoring gives us the component parts of our equation and allows us to find out what the x-intercepts are going to be with this nice, easy method. So try this one. Y equals x squared plus 10x plus 24. Okay. Well, once again, the method I'm using only works when a is 1. So let's identify the ABCs, because we will need them anyway. We need A to verify we can do this. We need B and C because that's what we use in the box method. A is 1. So far, so good. B is a +10 and C is a +24. So far, we're doing great. Let's set up the boxes. So I have one box here and then one box there with a space in between. I know they have to multiply to be the C term, which in this case is a +24. It does not hurt to use the sign. And add up to be the B term, which I know here is a +10. Okay, so I've outlined what I have to do. Now go through the steps I told you. Worry about the signs first. What kind of numbers multiply to be positive? Well, either 2 positives or 2 negatives. So, given those choices, what kind of numbers will add up to be positive? Can I have 2 negatives add up to be a positive number? No, I'm shaking my head. It doesn't work. They have to both be positive numbers. So I'm going to put plus in both of these boxes because I'm looking for 2 positive numbers. What are the multiples, or factors rather, of 24 that will multiply to be 24? Well, 1 and 24, but they don't add to be 10, they add to be 25. 2 and 12, well, that's 14. 3 and 8, well, that's 11. I'm getting closer. 4 and 6, the light bulb shows up over your head, the bells and whistles go off. 4 and 6, both positive. You can put the 6 or the 4 first. It doesn't really matter, okay? So 6 and 4, 4 and 6. They multiply to be positive 24. They add to be positive 10. I got the right numbers. So I'm going to write my equation now in factored form. Y equals parenthesis, x plus 6. You could also have written x plus 4 first. It does not matter. Then x plus 4. If you write x plus 6, then x plus 4, or flip them, it doesn't matter at all because it's multiplication and the order is irrelevant. Okay, so to solve it, what number would make that a 0? What's the x-intercept for the first factor? -6. And what is the x-intercept for the second factor? -4. Those are the answers. So on the x-axis, through -6 and -4, this parabola will cross through. That's factoring in a nutshell. Again, some numbers are harder to work with. Sometimes the numbers are larger to work through more factors. The sign can be confusing, positives versus negatives. Sometimes it can't be factored. So these are all possibilities here. But if I tell you to factor, trust me, on the quiz or test, it's going to be factorable. and just take some time to work through the steps. Now, so far as homework goes, you're in luck, there isn't any. Can't say there won't be an assignment tomorrow, but for right now, there is no homework. Understand again, this is the last real concept we're going to be focusing on for the school year. All right? If you have any questions, of course, email me. Otherwise, wait for tomorrow's video for a review of this and an assignment. Have a wonderful day.